As the government shutdown enters its fourth week, Donald Trump announcing an anonymous donor has pledged $130 million to pay our troops. Well, I guess that takes care of everything, right? That's good. Right? Oh, no, wait. Politico reporting that to cover the salaries of our troops, $130 million will pay less than a day's worth of salaries. Well, nice try, Donald. I guess that's why the donor was anonymous. The Washington Post reporting that accepting the money would violate what is called the Anti-Deficiency Act, forbidding the federal government from allowing people to offer free work beyond that appropriated by Congress. And it also forbids the president or any government agency from finding ways to spend money that hasn't been approved by Congress. For example, Ronald Reagan was barred from using federal money to fund the Contras in their war against the Sandinistas, who were running Nicaragua at the time. So Reagan wanted to fund the Contras. He wanted to get rid of the Marxists in Nicaragua. He sold weapons to Iran, used the profits off the books to fund the Contras. He should have been impeached for that. Presidents are not allowed to find other sources of funding for vanity projects like Central American wars or remodeling the East Wing of the White House. More about that later on. Donald Trump calling for the prosecution of special counsel Jack Smith, who indicted Trump twice, once for interfering in the 2020 presidential election, and again for mishandling classified documents. Late Friday, Trump also called for the prosecution of Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland, former FBI Director Christopher Wray, and several other deranged lowlifes who Trump falsely claimed spied not only on him, but also Republican members of Congress. He's imagining things. Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy White House chief of staff, appearing on Fox News late Friday, said Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker risks the danger of getting arrested for seditious conspiracy should the governor continue to obstruct ICE agents conducting raids in Chicago. Stephen Miller also said ICE agents cannot be arrested by state and local police because they have total immunity from prosecution. Yeah, sure they do. Well, maybe with Trump as president, they have total immunity. Michigan's well-respected survey of consumer confidence showing Americans are at their most pessimistic right now than they've been in nearly 40 years. This, as the new numbers for September showing inflation up at an annualized rate of 3%. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt saying with the government shutdown, they don't expect to release the inflation numbers for October. How convenient. Democrats accusing Trump of voter suppression and intimidation after Pam Bondi's Justice Department announced it would be monitoring elections scheduled for November 4th in New Jersey and California. A spokesperson for California Governor Gavin Newsom telling reporters, quote, deploying these federal forces appears to be an intimidation tactic meant for one thing, suppress the vote. Breaking news, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries finally endorsed Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist, for mayor of New York City, 4 months after Mamdani secured the Democratic Party's nomination. Hakeem Jeffries represents portions of New York City, mostly Brooklyn. In the House of Representatives, he hopes to become our next speaker after the 2026 midterms. Hakeem Jeffries said he delayed his endorsement out of concern for Zohran Mamdani's lukewarm support for the state of Israel. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, also from New York City, has yet to endorse Mamdani. The two met last month. Schumer called it a good meeting and promised they will keep talking. So far, no endorsement. To Chuck Schumer's credit, he did endorse India Walton, a Democratic socialist who won the Democratic nomination for mayor of Buffalo in 2021, only to end up losing to the incumbent Democrat in a write-in campaign heavily financed by landlords and right-wing Democrats. So he did the right thing. Schumer did the right thing 4 years ago. Let's see if he steps up for Mamdani. New York City's troubled mayor, Eric Adams, who lost the Democratic nomination to Mamdani, ran as a third-party candidate up until September 28th when he dropped out, with polling showing him in the single digits. On Wednesday, Adams officially endorsed disgraced New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. New York polling for mayor is showing Adams voters, such as they were, now claiming they will vote for Cuomo. But with November 4th fewer than 2 weeks away, Mamdani continues to have a commanding lead in the polls in a three-way matchup among Mamdani, Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa, a right-wing talk show host and founder of the vigilante group Guardian Angels. So in three-way races, Mamdani is up anywhere between 18 and 11 points, depending on which polls you're looking at. But in a head-to-head poll, where it's just Cuomo versus Mamdani, Mamdani only leads by 4 points, barely outside the margin of error. This is New York City, and if it slowly dawns on people that a democratic socialist who refuses to recognize Israel as a Jewish state is about to become mayor, we may see all of Curtis Sliwa's votes shifting to Cuomo, and registered voters not planning to vote might suddenly show up on Election Day. This will be the election to watch a week from Tuesday. 42 million Americans could go without food stamps just in time for Thanksgiving, with the government shutdown now entering its fourth week and no end in sight. Late Friday, Donald Trump rejecting a proposal for emergency funding to keep the program going during the budget battle. The president refusing to tap into the $6 billion contingency fund, and Axios now reporting that a memo has gone out informing all 50 states that if they pay for food stamps themselves during the shutdown, they will not be reimbursed by the federal government once it reopens. 25 states, including Texas and California, saying they may suspend their SNAP payments, SNAP, also known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. The United States Department of Agriculture administers SNAP. Now, thanks to the shutdown, it's short the $8 billion needed for November to deliver the monthly average of $187 in nutrition benefits to Americans who need it. Thanks to one big, beautiful bill signed into law on July 4th, Republicans succeeded in cutting overall SNAP spending by $200 billion. And yet we're not sure about the midterms? Why would anybody vote for these Republicans? Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey saying this could end up being the first government shutdown where Americans stop getting their food stamps. FEMA rejecting Maryland's request for roughly $34 million in emergency aid to recover from May's massive floods in the western part of that state. The Democratic governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, accusing Trump of playing partisan politics with FEMA funding, noting this year red states like West Virginia and Texas immediately got their FEMA relief following devastating floods in their respective states. Donald Trump ending trade talks with Canada because he disapproved of a television ad that ran in Ontario. The commercial, paid for by the Ontario government, attacked Trump's 35% tariffs on Canadian automobiles and steel. The ad featured Ronald Reagan calling tariffs the enemy of free trade. Trump called that ad, quote, egregious behavior. Doug Ford, Ontario's premier, accusing Trump of economic bullying. Late Friday, his government in Ontario pulled the television ad. Voting machines manufacturer Dominion, the subject of numerous lawsuits following the 2020 presidential election, is now owned by Scott Leidendecker, a former St. Louis elections director, Republican donor, and close friend to Ed Martin, Ed Martin, who served temporarily this year as Washington, D.C.'s U.S. attorney, but was quickly transferred to head the Justice Department's Pardon Office after his nomination was doomed due to Ed Martin's close ties to January 6 defendants. Ed Martin, a close friend of the new owner of Dominion Voting Machines. Dominion will change its name immediately to Liberty Vote. Dominion machines, according to the Daily Beast, were used in 27 states by millions of voters in last year's presidential election with no evidence of fraud. Dominion agreed to accept $750 million from Fox News to settle a defamation lawsuit filed by Dominion, accusing Fox of falsely claiming the voting machine company rigged the 2020 election to favor Joe Biden. In a similar lawsuit, Dominion settled with Newsmax for $67 million. They also sued Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, and Trump's attorney, Sidney Powell, for all making the same false accusation. Dominion's new Republican owner saying the company's machines will switch to paper ballots and comply with every part of Donald Trump's new election integrity executive order. 2025 could end up being the deadliest for the tens of thousands housed inside ICE's network of for-profit detention centers. 25 dead so far in ICE custody this year, the largest number since 2004 when 32 died. NPR reporting immigration activists warn next year will be deadlier as Donald Trump amps up his mass deportation program. With 60,000 held in ICE detention centers right now, the causes of death this year range from suicides to strokes, heart attacks, and tuberculosis. As I said, ICE detention facilities are mostly for-profit and are notoriously understaffed, overcrowded, and situated in remote parts of the country where medical response times are far slower than the national average. Thanks to one big beautiful bill signed into law on July 4th, the number held in ICE detention facilities will increase from 60,000 right now to 200,000 over the next 2 years, despite the number of people coming through the border now at record lows. The number of people apprehended at the southern border is down to levels not seen since the mid-1970s. Nobody's coming to America, and that presents its own problems for America's labor market. So, why, if nobody's coming to America, go from 60,000 to 200,000 beds in 2 years? Well, this is about getting rid of people who are already here and billions and billions of dollars going to GEO Group and CoreCivic, the two largest for-profit detention facility providers in America. TikTok and YouTube are lousy with citizen journalists chronicling masked ICE agents in unmarked automobiles refusing to identify themselves or present a badge number. In Trump's America, anyone claiming to be an ICE agent, wearing a mask, in plain clothes with just a vest and a gun, can grab anyone off the street without showing a badge or telling the people why they're grabbing them. I strongly urge you to watch these YouTube and TikTok videos taken by citizen journalists who are chronicling ICE agents. Because when you see these videos, you'll realize that when Donald Trump said ICE was going after the worst of the worst, he meant their hiring practices. That's who's working for ICE right now. Incompetent, impotent thugs who want to play cops and robbers without having to be a cop or dealing with robbers. It's cosplay with real people. That's all this is. And it's only going to get worse and much quicker than you think, because one big beautiful bill calls for $178 billion to be spent building out ICE's network of for-profit detention facilities while hiring 10,000 more ICE agents, each of whom receive $50,000 signing bonuses. Our government, through ICE, will spend more money fighting Trump's enemy within than it spends in all our other law enforcement agencies combined. The rush to hire 10,000 new ICE agents is being supervised by Kristi Noem, our director of Homeland Security, as well as Stephen Miller and Tom Homan. Tom Homan, who last year took $50,000 in cash, promising government contracts in a future Trump administration. It was an FBI sting operation. Homan still won't tell us what he did with the cash after the FBI was ordered by Trump to drop the investigation when he returned to the Oval Office. Homan's doing the hiring. Miller, Kristi Noem, and Corey Lewandowski, who was rumored to be Kristi Noem's lover. He's the de facto number 2 at the Department of Homeland Security. He also has a history of several credible sexual assault allegations resulting in at least one arrest down in Florida. The last time we checked in on Corey Lewandowski, he was being accused of defrauding the government by Trump's very own White House, who says he has yet to turn over his financial statements and reveal his other sources of income, as is required by law for all federal employees. He's hiring the agents. These are the people hiring. The people only Trump would hire are hiring people only these people would hire. So these 10,000 new ICE recruits, they're supposed to undergo a 22-week paid training program. Intensive training is supposed to be 4 months, but in the rush to get these agents out on the streets, it's been cut to just 6 to 8 weeks. Part of that training includes participating in active law enforcement under the supervision of a senior staffer. NBC News reporting it's conceivable that after only 6 to 8 weeks of training, these new ICE agent trainees are taking parts in raids, even though many of them still have not been fully vetted for their criminal records. Some have not yet submitted to fingerprinting or drug testing. NBC News reporting, quote, nearly half of new recruits who've arrived for training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center over the past 3 months were later sent home because they couldn't pass the written exam. All of this being done under the cloak of secrecy, with anyone who attempts to report on ICE malfeasance accused of endangering the lives of law enforcement. Taking video of an ICE agent, which is legal, is now called doxing. That, according to Kristi Noem and the White House, endangers not just the ICE agent, but their family as well. Last Tuesday, ICE agents in Los Angeles targeted a TikTok activist and community organizer who goes by the name Richard L.A. He posts videos of ICE activity in the city. Richard L.A. has no criminal record, but ICE arrested him Tuesday because he's not an American citizen. And more importantly, they don't want anyone filming their activities and posting it to TikTok, even though that's perfectly legal to do. Investigators now believe when an ICE agent attempted to pull Richard L.A. out of his car, the agent's gun accidentally discharged, hitting Richard L.A. and a deputy U.S. Marshal. Investigators now saying the gun went off because the ICE agent was using it as a hammer to smash open Richard L.A.'s car window. Homeland Security's official story is this ICE agent fired in self-defense, but that story sounds like all the other lies coming out of Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin. The deputy U.S. Marshal and Richard L.A. didn't suffer life-threatening injuries. Richard L.A. is now being held in an ICE detention facility accused of assaulting a federal officer and being in this country illegally, all because he was standing up for his community by posting videos of ICE agents. More than 150,000 people have applied to become ICE agents this year, but new reporting suggests many of them are overweight, can't pass a drug test, and have criminal records, a lot of domestic violence. Go online and look at the videos of these masked ICE agents. Go look at these newly released body cam videos of Florida police arresting an ICE agent for drunk driving while he has two small kids in the back of his car. Watch that ICE agent resist arrest while accusing one of the black officers of being Haitian. These ICE recruits are not the best. They have problems, and they're bringing their problems to America. They're criminals, drug addicts, and rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Slate reporting that 1/3 of new ICE recruits failed the required fitness test of 15 push-ups, 32 sit-ups, and being able to run 1.5 miles in under 14 minutes. New reporting that 85% of ICE agents currently on the job have not taken the fitness test, meaning they are unable to pass it and are only required to submit to a physical exam each year. It's also estimated by some that 1/3 of new recruits cannot pass a fitness test. Donald Trump canceling plans to send ICE agents and National Guard troops into San Francisco. Trump said he changed his mind after some of Silicon Valley's top CEOs, including the heads of NVIDIA and Salesforce, assured him local police can handle the rampant problem of decreasing crime in San Francisco. Homicides in San Francisco are at a 60-year low. So obviously we need to send troops in to bring those numbers back up. Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, headquartered in San Francisco, issued a public apology after giving an interview last week calling on Donald Trump to bring in the National Guard to clean up the streets of San Francisco. Benioff, up until that point, was known as a liberal Democrat who donated to Biden and Kamala Harris. In 2018, he purchased Time magazine for close to $200 million. Venture capitalist Ron Conway, one of Salesforce's original investors, quit the company's board to protest Benioff calling for federal troops to roam the streets of San Francisco. Although the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, apologized for saying troops were needed in San Francisco, his company, according to the New York Times, reached out to ICE, offering their artificial intelligence software to help ICE find the 10,000 new agents they are required by law to hire over the next couple of months. Brooke Jenkins is the San Francisco district attorney. She warned that federal ICE agents who use excessive force in her city will be arrested by local police. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, whose congressional district includes parts of San Francisco, joined in the threat, adding presidential pardons don't extend to state and local crimes. Pelosi warned federal agents who violate local sanctuary laws and use the kind of excessive force we're seeing in Chicago and Los Angeles. Well, in San Francisco, said Pelosi, those ICE agents will be arrested. Responding to San Francisco's threats to arrest ICE agents, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who up until this year was Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, fired off a letter to California's top law enforcement officials, Governor Gavin Newsom, State Attorney General Rob Bonta, San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins, as well as Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. In his letter, Blanche warned any attempts from local police to interfere with federal immigration enforcement officers are illegal and futile. He added, quote, "No one threatens our agents. No one will stop us from making America safe again." Yes, no one will stop us from creating a crisis where none exists and then calming the frightened masses by stealing their freedoms. California Governor Gavin Newsom last week accused Trump of working straight from the pages of the authoritarian playbook by using our military and his newly minted federal officers to show off overwhelming power in order to fight a problem that doesn't exist. Create a problem and then offer up an imaginary solution like 10,000 new ICE agents and 140,000 new for-profit ICE detention jail cells. That's what fascists do. They fight imaginary enemies because imaginary enemies are easy to defeat. There never was an invasion of migrants flooding our border, raping, murdering, stealing, and dealing drugs. But that didn't stop Trump from signing a series of executive orders this year claiming there was, which means anytime he decides, he can just declare victory because it's all imaginary. Bullies never pick on people their own size because they're cowards. Trump has taken it one step further. He picks on people who don't even exist. It's why he's declared war on Antifa. Antifa isn't an organization, it's an ideology. You might as well declare war on neoliberalism. In fact, please declare war on neoliberalism. But by convincing enough low information voters that Antifa is a real threat to our national security, Trump can terrify the stupid people who live in our country. And I don't know if you know this, and it might be hard for some of you to believe, but there are actually a few stupid people living in America. I know, it's shocking. We do such a terrific job keeping them from seeping into the public eye. But you got to trust me, they're out there. So when it suits Trump's purpose, he will declare victory over Antifa. Trump is a coward. So is everyone who works for ICE. They're too chicken shit to fight real enemies. So the last thing I want is for an ICE agent to be injured. But as I keep asking, if these immigrants are the worst of the worst, where are the ICE agents getting rushed to the hospital? I don't want it to happen, but I just don't see it. Supposedly, they're rounding up terrorists, members of drug cartels, gang members who are wanted for murder and rape. But the worst these immigrants do is try to drive away from ICE. That's all I read about. I don't see ICE agents in too much danger. You got immigrants running away, driving away. And when ICE agents ram their cars into the person they're trying to arrest, Homeland Security then charges that subject with endangering the lives of federal law enforcement officials, accusing the suspect of weaponizing their vehicles. A New Jersey congresswoman was indicted this year for assaulting an ICE agent after her elbow accidentally rubbed up against him when she was pushed while attempting to inspect a detention facility in her district. That ICE agent required no medical attention, but if you touch an ICE agent just by accident, it's assault. ICE agents are like Buddhist sand paintings. If you so much as blow on one, he'll dissolve into the breeze. Joshua Aaron, the creator of an app that alerts citizens to ICE agents within a 5-mile radius, is suing Apple after the computer giant banned that app from their online store. Attorney General Pam Bondi demanded the app get taken down, claiming, you guessed it, the app endangers the lives of ICE agents. But Aaron says his app, ICE Block, enjoys the very same First Amendment protections Waze has when it alerts motorists to the presence of police vehicles up ahead who might pull you over for speeding. Meta, Facebook's parent company, removed the ICE-citing Chicagoland group, caving into pressure from the Trump Justice Department, accusing this Facebook group of doxing and harming ICE agents. The group, before it was shut down, alerted Chicago locals to the presence of ICE agents hanging out near schools or stores looking to make an arrest. The ACLU insisting these Facebook pages amount to community organizations that just send security alerts and therefore enjoy First Amendment protections. There's nothing against the law alerting your fellow community members to the presence of police or ICE agents. Reuters reporting that Chicago's community activists are now enjoying success in preventing ICE arrests with something as low-tech as blowing plastic whistles to alert immigrants of nearby ICE agents. The organizers of Whistlemania call the blowing of whistles nonviolent resistance legal under Illinois law and instrumental in ICE agents coming up empty. A 35-year-old Washington, D.C. resident is now suing the city of Washington, D.C. after police arrested him last month for blasting Darth Vader's theme song as National Guard troops marched through the streets. Sam O'Hara was shooting video for his TikTok and YouTube channels before getting arrested. The ACLU says O'Hara was handcuffed and taken into custody with no prior warning from police, asking him to turn off the music. The mother of a Chicago woman killed in January by a drunk-driving, undocumented Guatemalan immigrant asked Donald Trump to stop invoking her daughter's memory to justify his immigration crackdown in her city. The mother calling Trump's exploitation of her daughter's death unbearable, adding her daughter would never want her name attached to any government policy intended to terrify people, especially children. Illinois Secretary of State launching Plate Watch, a telephone hotline to alert state police of ICE agents swapping out their license plates and or concealing them, which violates Illinois law. Illinois residents are now encouraged to provide evidence of ICE agents swapping out plates or driving unmarked vehicles missing plates on either the front or the back. Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Giannoulis giving out the number for his tip line, adding, quote, "No one, including federal agents, is above the law." J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois and world-leading Oliver Platt impersonator, J.B. Pritzker earlier this month urged his constituents to practice constant vigilance by whipping out their phones whenever they spot ICE agents in their neighborhood. The policy isn't for you to start filming once an ICE agent begins to arrest somebody. The policy is record ICE agents at all times. Keep a running record of all their activity, even when they're just sitting around. American citizens are allowed to film any federal or local law enforcement official who are out in public, so long as your filming doesn't interfere with their policing activity. When a police officer pulls you over, you are allowed to hold up your phone and begin recording the entire encounter. The law enforcement officer, federal or local, has no right to tell you to stop filming so long as your phone or camera isn't obstructing that officer from performing their job. This week, the governor of Illinois also issued an executive order establishing the Illinois Accountability Commission, which will now monitor and then create a public record for all ICE agent activity and ICE abuses in Illinois. Run by a retired Illinois judge, this commission is asking residents for any evidence of abuse. It will issue a final report in January of 2026. Governor Pritzker saying one of the reasons for this commission is to establish an historical record of when our federal government began viewing Americans as adversaries. Nicole Foy of ProPublica out with a new investigative piece entitled, "We found that more than 170 U.S. citizens have been held by immigration agents. They've been kicked, dragged, and detained for days." The name of the story is, "We found that more than 170 U.S. citizens have been held by immigration agents. They've been kicked, dragged, and detained for days." And that's this year, 170 that they found for 2025. Check out that story over at ProPublica and then donate to ProPublica. On Tuesday, 4 American citizens were arrested and detained by ICE during a New York City raid on Canal Street. Congressman Dan Goldman, who represents parts of New York City, he's also a former federal prosecutor, calling these arrests lawless terror and a disturbing abuse of power and a clear violation of civil rights. Congressman Goldman said his office had to work to get these 4 U.S. citizens out of detention where they were held for nearly 24 hours. Goldman accusing Trump of using ICE to incite a violent reaction from the community in order to justify sending American troops into the streets. After 4 American citizens were arrested by ICE agents during Tuesday's raid in New York City and then detained for 24 hours, New York State Attorney General Letitia James set up the Federal Action Reporting Portal for residents to submit video, photographs, and written reports on ICE activity. New York residents now urged to monitor all ICE activity and submit reports and evidence through this new portal so New York State Attorney General Letitia James can determine whether ICE agents have violated state law. Just so you don't get yourself into trouble, please pay attention to this. We all want to do our part. What we don't want is to get arrested or worse. I have a lot of white listeners who still don't understand that America is a police state and always has been. So this is for my white listeners. You need to know not just your rights, but the rights of ICE agents as well. As odious as everyone who works for ICE is, by law, ICE agents are allowed to conduct their job in safety and anonymity. Yes, anonymity. I don't want any of my listeners injured. I don't want any federal law enforcement agents injured. I don't want any of my listeners arrested. Now look, you can film ICE agents. You can approach them and ask questions so long as you're not interfering with their job or touching them. You probably can scream obscenities at them, but from a distance. The most effective way to check ICE's power is with your cell phone. Record everything. Now, there is a misconception out there about what ICE agents are required by law to tell you. By law, I regret to inform you, by law, ICE agents are required to tell you very little. I listen to a lot of community activists who seem confused, who think ICE agents are like local police officers. Local police officers, many of their departments require local police officers to wear body cams and display badges with their names and ID numbers prominently visible. But ICE agents are not local police officers. Usually, depending on the city, when you're pulled over by a local police officer, you can demand to see that officer's identification. You can ask questions. The same does not apply to federal ICE agents. Unlike many local police officers, ICE agents are not required by law to wear body cams. Under federal law, you are allowed to ask an ICE agent for their name and badge number, but they are not required by law to provide it. By law, all they must do is identify themselves as federal law enforcement. That's it. If you don't like the law, change it, but don't get arrested for violating it. Don't exercise rights you don't have. You need to know your rights and the rights of ICE agents. And if you watch the videos of ICE agents in masks on YouTube or TikTok, and I really recommend that you do, you see that the ICE agents are very intimidating. They don't answer questions. They don't give their names or badge numbers because they don't have to. You can ask them for it. That's not against the law. You can videotape them all day, not against the law, but you cannot get in their way or touch them. If you don't like the law, change it. In July, New Jersey's Democratic Senator Cory Booker and California's Democratic Senator Alex Padilla introduced the Visible Act, which would prevent ICE agents from wearing masks and also force them to wear their badge numbers on their uniforms. Donald Trump ridiculed this bill, accusing Democrats of inciting attacks against law enforcement, because that is how Republicans have been operating going back to Nixon running as the law and order candidate in 1968. When you criticize ICE, you're threatening their lives. When you criticize a war, you're endangering our troops. And when you criticize the president, you hate America. As part of his revenge tour, Donald Trump ordered the U.S. Attorney for Virginia to indict New York State Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud. Trump seeking vengeance for her successful civil lawsuit, where last year a judge ruled Trump had in fact defrauded banks and lenders when he borrowed hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars at favorable interest rates, all based on phony financial statements. New reporting says this Letitia James indictment is even flimsier than anyone could have imagined. Letitia James is running for re-election this year. She was indicted, accused of lying to lenders by claiming her Norfolk, Virginia home was a primary residence instead of property purchased for rental income. They're accusing her of lying and misleading lenders. The indictment says she lied and bought the property for rental income, but leaked memos from prosecutors now suggesting her rental income from the property in 2020 was slightly more than $1,000 for the entire year. If true, prosecutors will have a hard time convincing a jury that New York State Attorney General Letitia James lied when she told lenders the property would not be used for income. So far, Donald Trump has been able to secure indictments for Letitia James on mortgage fraud. His former national security advisor, John Bolton, was indicted last week on mishandling classified documents, and his former FBI director, James Comey, was indicted for lying to Congress. Of those three indictments, the strongest case is generally agreed to be the one against John Bolton. Trump is really using the legal process as revenge. He wants these people to have to hire lawyers. He wants their time to get sucked by the process and, of course, the bad publicity. He doesn't care about the verdict, although John Bolton could be looking at prison time, I hope. And then there's California Senator Adam Schiff, who sits among the top on Trump's hit list. That's because Schiff chaired the House Intelligence Committee during the height of the Russiagate investigation, and he served as one of the impeachment managers during Trump's first trial in the Senate. Trump wants to get Schiff. Trump's Federal Housing Finance Agency director, Bill Pulte, has been poring over mortgages belonging to Trump's enemies, trying to uncover the slightest illegality, and then he makes a criminal referral. By the way, this guy's father, according to reporting by Reuters last month, his father was caught taking tax exemptions on 2 primary residences, and it was against the law. And after that Reuters story came out, his father's tax exemptions were removed in the state of Michigan, and he had to pay a fine, and he has to pay his fair share of taxes. But that's not stopping Pulte from going after Lisa Cook, the black Federal Reserve governor who Trump wants fired and arrested for mortgage fraud, and Letitia James, mortgage fraud. And of course, he wants to get Adam Schiff for mortgage fraud. Back in May, Pulte recommended Schiff be prosecuted for listing 2 properties as his primary residence when he filled out paperwork for mortgages that have long been paid back. NBC News reporting back in August that Attorney General Pam Bondi appointed former interim U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Ed Martin, as a special attorney, ordering him to investigate and then prosecute Schiff for mortgage fraud. Find a crime and prosecute him. But now NBC News reporting Friday that this investigation has been turned over to the U.S. Attorney for Maryland, who reportedly told Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche that they're stalled and are having a really hard time finding any evidence that Senator Adam Schiff committed mortgage fraud. But the investigation into Schiff continues. In September, you might remember Donald Trump posted a message on social media scolding Attorney General Pam Bondi for not bringing any indictments against Schiff, James, and Comey. NBC News reporting that White House sources say the president didn't intend for that message to go out on social media, that it was supposed to be a private memo. Meanwhile, Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, made a criminal referral this week to the Justice Department, asking them to prosecute former CIA Director John Brennan, accusing Brennan of lying about the infamous Steele dossier during his 2023 testimony before Congress. The Steele dossier was intelligence gathered by a former British spy. It served as one of the reasons our FBI initiated its investigation into Russia's meddling on behalf of Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential election. Brennan was Obama's CIA director throughout 2016, and in August of 2016, he was the first one to brief President Obama on Russian interference in the upcoming election. Obama was informed just days after the FBI launched Crossfire Hurricane, which became the investigation that soon morphed into Russiagate, resulting in the Mueller report. Trump holds Brennan and Comey personally responsible for Russiagate. After the Mueller report came out in 2019, Attorney General Bill Barr appointed U.S. Attorney John Durham to look for any criminal activity that may have occurred inside that Russiagate investigation. Durham issued his report during the Biden administration. He enraged Republicans when he concluded no crimes were committed inside the FBI or the CIA. He said Comey over at the FBI and Brennan over at the CIA did not commit any crimes when they launched an investigation into Russiagate. That didn't stop Jim Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, from making a criminal referral this week because whatever Trump wants. Donald Trump on Thursday pardoned the founder of Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Changpeng Zhao is said to be worth $85 billion. He served 4 months in prison 2 years ago for money laundering after making a $4.3 billion plea deal with the Biden Justice Department. The Trump White House calling Zhao a victim of the Democrats' war on crypto. He's been pardoned. Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren calling Trump's pardon more evidence of corruption, adding Zhao got in Trump's good graces by promoting the Trump family's cryptocurrency ventures this year. Meanwhile, the architects behind Melania Trump's cryptocurrency are the subject of a pump-and-dump class action lawsuit filed by investors who accuse Benjamin Chao, co-founder of the crypto exchange Meteora, and Hayden Davis, co-founder of Kelsier Labs, of conspiring to push people to buy Melania's meme coin, along with 5 other meme coins, one aptly named Enron. and another one promoted by Argentine President Javier Milei, who is currently lobbying the Trump administration for a $40 billion bailout for his country. That's Milei, Trump's friend, president of Argentina, with his infamous chainsaw, promising to cut spending. Well, he cut, and now he needs $40 billion to stabilize the economy so his party doesn't take a beating in Sunday's election. So Melania, she isn't accused of any wrongdoing in this class action lawsuit, but she is named as part of the window dressing, someone whose personality and name was used to bring credibility to these meme coins when they were first launched, encouraging investors to pile in, and then these investors watched as the meme coin's value evaporated in a matter of weeks. When the Melania meme coin was launched on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, it was valued at $13.73. Today, it's worth between 7 and 10 cents. That is more than a 99% loss. Last name Trump, so of course. That doesn't mean she wasn't paid some sort of fee to promote this meme coin, to pump her meme coin. Did she dump it before did she dump it after she pumped it? I think that would be against the law, so my guess is she probably did. That's my guess. Who knows? Then there's Donald's meme coin. Did he pump and dump? If you go by smell alone, the answer is yes, but that's not about the meme coin. Donald's meme coin is faring slightly better than Melania's, so maybe he pumped but didn't dump. 2 days before his inauguration, Trump's meme coin sold for $1.21. On the day he was inaugurated, it jumped to $75.35. Today, it's down 92%, selling for a little under $6. This is the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. Share it, subscribe to my newsletter, and this channel. The Pentagon announced a 10th missile strike on suspected Venezuelan drug smugglers, now bringing the number killed to more than 42. The latest is the first airstrike on alleged Venezuelan drug dealers in the Pacific. All other strikes were launched in the Caribbean. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Republican James Risch, saying he sees no need for hearings, despite these attacks continuing with no end in sight, and the War Powers Act mandating both congressional oversight and consent. Several Republican senators, including Rand Paul of Kentucky and Todd Young of Indiana, questioning the legality of these airstrikes. Rand Paul accusing Trump of waging an unauthorized war, adding a president just can't start killing people. Talking to reporters inside the Oval Office, Trump said he's preparing a land invasion of Venezuela. Last week, Trump said the CIA is already working on a secret operation inside Venezuela, attempting to topple the Maduro regime. It's secret. How do I know it's secret? Trump told us it's secret. We're not supposed to know about it. He's so good with secrets, isn't he? That's why he was never indicted for mishandling classified documents, because he can be trusted with our nation's secrets. The man literally said, our CIA is working on a secret plan to topple Maduro. Yes. He's so smart. He's deploying the element of surprise. An aircraft carrier strike group led by the USS Gerald R. Ford is already in the Caribbean, carrying 75 fighter and support jets, including Super Hornet strike fighters, anti-submarine Seahawk helicopters, and unmanned aerial attack drones. Its escort ships include Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruisers and attack submarines. I just made some impotent men slightly turgid by talking that way. 4,500 elite special operations commandos belonging to the Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Delta Force are said to be on those ships. This suggests some kind of nighttime stealth invasion is on the table. The United States placed a $50 million bounty on Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. He was indicted by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York in March of 2020, charging him with narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and illegal use of weapons. The indictment accuses Maduro, this is an indictment from 5 years ago, it accuses Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, of leading Cartel of the Suns, a drug trafficking operation that conspires with Colombia's drug dealers to flood the United States with cocaine. That is why Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls the leader of Venezuela a fugitive of justice. Citing the post-9/11 2001 congressional war authorization to fight a global war on terror, Trump officially labeled Venezuelan drug cartels terrorists this year, thereby seizing what he deemed legal authority to attack Venezuela without further congressional authority necessary. Trump thinks as long as he can call drug dealers terrorists, he is free to use our military, and he bases this on the 2001 congressional war authorization passed right after 9/11, giving George Bush and future presidents authorization to fight a war on global terror. So all you have to do if you're president is call somebody a terrorist, and the military is yours to they think to use any way they want. So it's important for Trump to keep calling them terrorists. It's why you often hear Secretary of State Marco Rubio trying to reinforce Trump's legal authority to invade Venezuela. Marco Rubio will often refer to these narco-terrorists as Al-Qaeda. As the buildup to some sort of land assault builds momentum, it's starting to feel like George Herbert Bush's invasion of Panama, where he deployed troops his first year in office to capture his old friend, General Manuel Antonio Noriega. There they are, sitting together. They used to be friends. Noriega was brought back to the United States after that invasion, where he was convicted of drug trafficking. Noriega was a drug trafficker. He probably sold some of the cocaine our CIA dumped into the inner city to fund Reagan and Bush's illegal war against the Sandinistas. Noriega spent 17 years behind bars in America, was extradited to France, where he served 4 years for money laundering. He returned to Panama, where he was held until his death in 2017. He died at the age of 83. So George Herbert Walker Bush invaded Panama without congressional authorization. This was 1989. He didn't ask for a declaration of war because a declaration of war is so 1941. He didn't even ask for a congressional authorization for the use of force. He just invaded and notified congressional leaders after the invasion began. That is in accordance with the War Powers Act, which allows a commander-in-chief to invade a country, but then he has to, or she has to submit an explanation to Congress within 48 hours of that invasion. According to the War Powers Act, the president, after he invades a country, has 60 days to fight that war before he requires either a declaration of war from Congress or a war authorization. Sometimes he can be given a 30-day extension in order to secure a safe exit from that country for our troops. Congress, this is according to the War Powers Act, can stop a war by passing what is called a concurrent resolution. concurrent resolution means it passes in both the House of Representatives and the Senate with simple majorities in both the House and the Senate. They can vote to end a war, and the troops must come home, excuse me, without the president's consent. It's in the War Powers Act. It's called a concurrent resolution, and it's just a simple majority. War-making powers reside in Congress. Somebody should tell that to Congress. Meanwhile, Donald Trump telling reporters on Friday he doesn't need congressional authority to invade Venezuela. He says, "I already have it," adding, quote, "We're just going to kill people who are bringing drugs into America." He added, "We're going to kill them. They're going to be dead." Why? Because they're drug dealers, and this war in Venezuela, it's all about the drugs. Nothing to do with Venezuela having the world's largest known oil reserves, bigger than Saudi Arabia's, 303 billion proven oil reserves, to be exact. But it has nothing to do with that. It's about stopping the flow of drugs into our country. In 2007, under the leadership of Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, Venezuela nationalized the oil industry. And just like when Iran tried that in the 1950s, the United States said, well, it's your country, your oil, whatever you want to do. I think that's what we said to Iran when they tried to nationalize their oil, right? I better double check. Exxon claims the Venezuelan government seized $1 billion worth of its assets and has been fighting Maduro in court to get that money back. But that has nothing to do with the American military. Exxon has billions. They can fight their own battles. I mean, when has Exxon ever had to rely on the United States military to protect their oil investments? No. If we go to war in Venezuela, this is about cocaine and fentanyl. Our friends from ConocoPhillips say Venezuela owes them close to $10 billion. Chevron says Venezuela owes them hundreds of millions. Then there are the mining companies and smaller oil companies all claiming Venezuela owes them money after they nationalized their natural resources. But why would Trump topple the Venezuelan regime over oil? No, this is all about stopping the flow of cocaine and fentanyl into the United States and, of course, spreading freedom and democracy. The Washington Post reporting the State Department is following through with Trump's promise only to grant asylum to white immigrants fleeing oppressive countries run by black leaders. Trump this year capped the number of refugees at 7,500, with 7,000 slots reserved for white South African farmers falsely claiming their land was stolen by the government. And yet, for some reason, people think Trump's a racist. The President Donald J. Trump Ballroom. ABC News reporting that's going to be the name of the new ballroom inside the White House, as the 90,000 square foot East Wing of the White House was demolished this week in order to build the President Donald J. Trump Ballroom at a cost of $300 million. This ballroom is being paid for by private donors. As long as you're taking a wrecking ball to the White House, why not take one to our United States Penal Code? He's not only destroyed the office of our president, now he's destroying its home. He took a wrecking ball to the White House without permission, and right now most of us are going, yeah, okay, that's like number 4,000 on a list of things he did this week that's illegal. Well, it is against the law. According to the law, no changes to the White House are permitted without congressional approval. Remember Congress? Changes to the White House also require consultations with the National Park Service and the National Capital Planning Commission, and you're not allowed to fund the demolition of the White House off the books through private donations. Trump's decision to go ahead without any approval from Congress signifies he's not just attempting to leave his mark on the White House, he's not leaving the White House. He has no plans to vacate, and we all know this. Steve Bannon, his former campaign manager, now insisting Trump will serve a third term and that starting right after next year's midterms, plans are already in place to begin workarounds to the 22nd Amendment, which limits a president to 2 terms. What do you think? Do you think he's going to leave? Responding to last Saturday's No Kings protests, Donald Trump Jr. told Fox News, "My father isn't a king." Why isn't he a king, according to Don Jr.? Because, I'm not making this up, Don Jr. said if he were a king, he wouldn't have left office peacefully in 2021. Yeah, I have to agree. The man accepted defeat to Joe Biden with the height of decorum. Donald Trump Jr., by the way, is making millions advising weapons manufacturers who are looking for a way into the Pentagon. That's according to investigative reporter Eric Lipton at the New York Times. Lipton writes that Unusual Machines, that's the name of the company, gave Don Jr. 200,000 shares in their company late last year. Those shares are now worth several million. They gave those shares to Don Jr. in exchange for Don Jr.'s advice on how to secure Pentagon contracts for what they call their kamikaze drones. Kamikaze drones, which are loaded with explosives and then flown directly into the enemy. That's what they're pushing. The Times reporting Unusual Machines last month sold 3,500 drone engines to the Army's 101st Airborne Division. The Army is expected, according to the Times, to purchase an additional 20,000 parts from this company that Don Jr. is advising next year. California Governor Gavin Newsom, and likely 2028 presidential candidate, lashed out at Speaker Mike Johnson, did this during a press conference on Wednesday. Gavin Newsom said, "Where is Speaker Johnson on all this? Where is the outrage by what the hell is going on in our country? This is not the United States of America." Gavin Newsom said Johnson's obedience to these authoritarian tendencies may be the most disgraceful of all aspects of this moment. I agree. You expect Trump to behave this way. It's the enablers. Then Gavin Newsom suggested Mike Johnson and Donald Trump are going to have a lot of explaining to do if they think they're going to make it into heaven. Newsom said, quote, "To see people in positions of power and influence do absolutely nothing when they must know better, and I believe they do, boy, they're going to have a lot to reconcile at the pearly gates." Earlier this month, Donald Trump ruefully told reporters on a flight home from the Middle East he doesn't think he's heaven-bound. A new CBS YouGov poll showing 62% of Californians will vote in favor of Gavin Newsom's plan to redraw congressional maps, creating 5 reliably blue congressional seats to improve the Democratic Party's chances of taking back the House in next year's midterms. This referendum goes before California voters on Election Day this year. The question is whether to sidestep California's bipartisan commission that normally draws California's maps. If this referendum passes, California's Democratic lawmakers will carve out as many as 5 reliably new blue congressional seats in an attempt to cancel out the new reliably red congressional seats that the Republican-controlled state legislature in Texas created earlier this year. Democrats in Virginia, Maryland, and Illinois are exploring the possibilities of new maps right now to add several more reliably blue seats into the mix. Vice President J.D. Vance has made several trips to Indiana, urging Republicans there to create one or two new reliably red congressional seats. But while support seems to be there in the Republican-controlled State House, Politico reporting the Republican-controlled Indiana Senate saying the votes just aren't there. More good news for Democrats heading into the 2026 midterms. A new Quinnipiac poll showing Democrats leading Republicans by 9 points in a generic congressional ballot. The midterms are a little more than a year away. This suggests, if the election were held today, Democrats would win back the House of Representatives. You know the math. Democrats only need 3 seats, and then the gavel gets passed to Hakeem Jeffries. Short of a civil war, that would end Donald Trump's presidency, I think. And finally, Vladimir Putin calling Donald Trump's new sanctions on Russian oil, quote, serious but ineffective. On Wednesday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent banned American businesses from doing any more business with Russia's 2 leading oil companies. They're still doing business. These sanctions are flexible, which means Trump can change them at will. So this is far different. These sanctions are far different from the bipartisan bill proposed by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, which would have slapped a 500% tariff on any country that purchases its oil from Russia. It is estimated revenue from oil pays for close to half of Russia's federal budget. If you cut off foreign purchases of Russian oil, a lot of people think that would end the war. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. If you enjoyed any portion of this show, please hit the like button. That's the best way for me to stay in your feed. Also, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell. What else? Please share this if you can. And I read all your comments. Leave a comment. Thank you so much for listening.